we are on the region of time, and say the time zone of Tisha B'Av. It is really an unlucky time. I mean, it is. Let's say. They say it was the time in which the first temple was destroyed, the second temple has been destroyed. Beitar, which was at the end of the Bar Kokhba revolt, was also destroyed in Tisha B'Av, and so on it goes. There were several dates like this. The expulsion of Jews from Spain was on Tisha B'Av, more or less. The same thing was the First World War began on Tisha B'Av, exactly. So it is what they call, the time it's not a lucky time or a good time to be. There are lots of stories, and one of them I will just skip the basic story. It's a time for mourning, and it goes first temple, second temple. Historically, you didn't come to listen, not to hear about history, about other things. There is a kind of a mix up between the first temple and second temple period in the Tisha B'Av things. They are superimposed over each other, and many other times, because usually they have a notion that when there is an unlucky day, you heap on it on more unlucky things. Anyway, so it's a day, it's a time, which is first temple, first exile. Second temple, second exile. But to put it in a more precise way, I would put it this way, that even though in both times it was we as Jews, we lost the war, we were defeated, and that was about the time we were defeated. Our kingship or our rule was destroyed, which is a tragedy. We had a fair number of people, first temple time, second temple time, and many other times. We were dispersed all over the world, and so on. So it is a combined and unpleasant time altogether. But in many ways, the core of whatever we do about Tisha B'Av is really the destruction of the temple. That is the main point. The rest are, it's not that they are unimportant, but as somebody said, half of a joke about it, see. Okay, they killed so many Jews in those times. They say that in the time of the destruction of the third destruction here in Eretz Israel, of the Bar Kokhba revolt, in the time and when they destroyed Beitar, again in the same time, they say that they killed around Eretz Israel about 1 million Jews, which was not in absolute numbers, but in what we call in percentage, was something like the Holocaust. I mean, it's a huge percentage of our people were killed at a time. Very, again, not mercifully, but some of them in war, some of them post-war. So it was, but all these things is, you can say, as somebody said, half cynically, but not only. See, and what would happen if they wouldn't kill them? Would they still be alive today? See, it is not just a joke. People were dead, people were killed. But sometimes the question is, okay, it happened quite a long time ago. 2,000 years, more than 2,000 years ago. It's quite a long time. And so speaking about the people killed, people dead, it doesn't seem to be that essential. What is in many ways essential is the only thing that really changed was the destruction of the temple. That is the real change. And that is the real change. And the basic mourning goes around it. The destruction, the temple has been destroyed. Now, let me just, and that's more or less not just a preface, but just all the explanation of what we are talking about. Look, the destruction of the temple is, when we speak about it, and there is lots of mourning, and there are keynote and so on, so much written about it, so much crying, and some people are really crying on Tisha B'Av. we are there, dealing with it. We are suffering from one thing. We can speak about the temple has been destroyed, and we cry, and we say, "Yibaneh Beit HaMikdash v'me'ara b'yameinu," and we pray. But in many ways, it is in many formats. It is just a matter of saying things one way or another. It's not that serious. Why? Because, see, for us, we live in a post-temple period, in a period in which we didn't have a temple. So when you don't have it, you don't really know what you miss. That is such a very simple thing, but so very important. I mean, I'm speaking about the temple, destruction of the temple. A terrible thing. But, okay, so destroy the temple. So what? Really and truly. So, because we don't have it. You see, I'll just give you in some ways also, this is perhaps a kind of an example. When somebody is born an orphan, you don't really know exactly what you miss. When you become orphaned at an older age, you can say, I miss my father, I miss my mother. That is one point. But you see, being an orphan has at least one point, which you look at others and you envy them. You envy them because they have a father, you have a mother, you don't have them. In our case, we are living without a temple, and we don't really know what it is to be with a temple. That in a way, this thing shows itself in so many facets of our life, of our behavior. That is so very clear. I'm speaking about the temple. I mean, what for? What for? What is the temple? So it is. Of course, I can speak about it. I can say the word many a time, but the real feeling is when something is there and I miss it. See, in the first generation after the temple, I suppose for the Jewish people spiritually, it was like, okay, you had an accident and you find yourself that you have 2 feet, two legs and 1 hand cut off from you. Perhaps more than that, because in so many ways, in those times, the temple was not just a point in the history. It was a center of the Jewish life. Life went, in a way, revolved around the temple. The temple was not just a place in which you come. It wasn't like a synagogue. It was everything. And it is very hard to explain. I mean, I'm not going to now to deal with the halacha. That there is the time. What we have now as Judaism is a different kind of Judaism than it was in the temple time. There are lots of things that are no longer exist, but are no longer meaningful to us. See, just imagine that Judaism was something so very different from what it is now. So what we have is, we are living miraculously, I have to say, on what remained to Judaism after cutting off of so many important parts. We are just a misshapen and maimed body of Jewishness. If you know that people speak about Taryag mitzvot, practically in our time, we have enough mitzvot on one way. I mean, as you know, we have enough to do. It would be another discussion. Do we have enough, or don't we have enough? But there are a fair number of mitzvot. But if you speak about Taryag mitzvot, 613 mitzvot, just tell you simply, at least 2/3 of them are not meaningful because there is no temple. We are in fact living not on a third, but perhaps something like, I would say, perhaps 10% of the mitzvot are valid in our time. All the rest were connected in one way or another to the temple, to Jewish life around the temple, and so on. So many of the things that are in the list of mitzvot are in our time. They are just not here. We have memories of them. So just imagine that you had a life, and then the life is cut off, and you somehow survive. But your survival is in a very different stage, in a very different way. I mean, you are still alive, but everything changed. So I'm saying that to feel it is, I have to have some kind of a notion. I have to be in the temple time, and I have to feel what it is. I'm not going to speak now about the remnants of the temple or the places that you can find of the temple time. It's a completely different life, and let me just say, among other things, we are living now. It's one of our sufferings. We are living, and we are a body, not too big, but we are a body of people. But this body of people doesn't have any kind of a real central point. When the temple was there was a point in which you can say, that is the center of our existence. It disappeared. And we don't know it anymore. We are living what I call living in one stable, in another stable, in this grouping, another grouping. Even the notion that there is something that is, we keep it, and I'll come to it later, we keep it, some memories of it. But basically we don't have it. And we don't have something which the temple had, which is, I would say, look, I know that many of you were what I call raised and born in all kinds of places. And many of you went, until you came here, you went through all kinds of a spiritual kind of existence. But you see, when you think about it, all kind of spirituality, overflowing spirituality, the temple was almost the opposite. That you have a tangible feeling of, see, holiness is not just words that you say and you drool about in one or another. Holiness was something that you can, when they say it in this way, לראות את פני האדון השם, to see and to be seen before the Master, the Lord. That's a very different feeling from going to the synagogue. I'm going to the synagogue. It's a spiritual experience. To feel that I'm at the house of the Master is a very different feeling. It's a very different experience, a very different thing. So this palpable, this real kind of feeling that was in the temple time, which all its ramifications in life, in thousands, really thousands of ramifications. If you think that to be a Jew now is hard, in those times it was really difficult to keep the laws of purity and impurity. The terrible, huge world that we don't really know. So what I'm saying is that we can speak about it, but we don't have a feeling. We are people that we are not being maimed. We were born in a way maimed people. We are born in a kind of we are born in some kind of an orphanage in which everybody doesn't have all the limbs on him. That's a kind of so that's our life of today. To imagine the past. Therefore, we can speak about the temple, but the feeling of it is a very different feeling. And to have this feeling, you have to have the experience. It's very hard to have it when I didn't have anything similar to it. The notion, you see, of that there is something that is holy, not in a way, in a form, in a sense, but it is that holiness is there's a place, there's a form, there are stones, but you have the feeling, here is something that is not just a symbol of a symbol, a dream of a parable. It is something. So that is the temple. Now, I'm not going now to speak about that, just but to speak about the temple. In fact, what I'm going to do is just the other way around. I'm trying to deal with the temple in a very different way. Unfortunately, I'm trying to speak about spirituality. It's a great pity. So let me just begin with one simple thing, which is in a way it should help you. I mean, entering it. Many people saw pictures. I mean, there are lots of pictures of the temple, and one way or another. And sometimes you can see also the Temple Mount. I mean, you can see from you can possibly visit it, but at least you can see it from a distance. In some way, it gives us, first of all, the wrong impression that we have of it, because one of the points about the temple is not one flat, even place. The temple was not like this, because the Temple Mount today is a flatland, and the pictures are two-dimensional. In fact, the temple was built like a symbolic tower, in which the Holy of Holies was just physically. You had when you entered into the main court of the temple, you entered into one level. To go to the place where you have the altar and so on, you had to climb upstairs, and then you had stairs and stairs going up and up until you came to the temple itself, which was much higher than everything else. So the temple, you should see the temple. The temple is basically a tower that goes from low to high. It is not a flat place like a synagogue or whatever it is. It is in some way, when we speak about Har Hashem, the mountain of God. That is the mountain of God in its very essence. It's a mountain in which you climb higher and higher, in which you go from step to step. So it's important, not only in having a better picture or a better view what the temple was, but it also in later on in understanding what is the basic, the meaning of the whole thing. Because it is not unlike other places that we had Mishkan in one way. The Beit HaMikdash was a tower that goes on higher and higher, and the higher up you are, you go from the less holy to the more holy, just going up. You are going up. So physically, entering the temple is not just going just within, but you go inside and up. Inside and up. This is the way the temple was built. It's important to understand. Now, the temple, in many ways, it is true, and if one deals with it, say, even from a halachic point of view, what Maimonides says about it, there are all kinds of visions and views and pictures how the temple should be done. There is the first temple that we have a certain kind of we can make a certain kind of a map of the first temple. Same thing of the second temple, which we have more details, and we have even some kind of a map of the third temple. But all this is what should be done. The very basic, essential notion about the temple is very simple. It's very simple. It's much simpler, which we call it bediavad, post facto. If we cannot do it in the proper way, and we want to have a temple, there are some essentials that we have to keep, and some other things there are matters, I would say, if you can do it better, nicer, higher, more elaborate, do it. But the basis is not so elaborate. There are some of the basic things which are in the temple. And one of the points is, and here I'm coming to the point is, the temple is in some ways it has to be a microcosmos. It is a picture or image of the not just of one thing. It's an image of the worlds. The temple in itself is a kind of a symbol. It is not a practical, real thing, but it is an image of the worlds. So the temple is, in a way, every part of the temple is equivalent, or at least is parallel to a certain part in the, what I call in not just in our physical world, but in the notion of the worlds altogether. So the temple is in that sense, it's a map or a model, to be better, to say it better. The temple is a model of the reality of the worlds. So the notion of, and that's what I'm trying to do with you. Going into the temple is, on one way, it's not really a small picture of the world, but it is something like a model, that you have a working model of the world. And it is also important to understand, because it is a small working model, because it is so, it is therefore also, you can deal with it and in a certain way feel that you are the master of the whole, all the universes. See, if you have it, say, you may have a huge machinery, and this machinery has some kinds of a center of the place in which you have all the levers and all the buttons. Now there you have, it is in that small room sometimes, which is the center of the command center of a factory, or sometimes of a country, sometimes of a whole world, is one point in which every point there is parallel to some other points in the outside, and therefore any touching of that point means that you are touching not only a point. See, when I'm pushing a button there, it is not just pushing a button. Pushing a button is not important. I'm pushing really something that is connected and is transmitted to the other world. As you know, there are I suppose they have it. The President of the United States has one plaything like this. The President of Russia has a thing like this. A small box with a button in it. And when you press this button, something begins to happen. So pressing the button is a small thing. But when you press the button, when you know that you release 1,000 missiles, each of them equipped with a few atomic warheads, you know that it is not pushing the button. In many ways, the whole notion is that in the temple, there was something which is the control panel of the whole world. It is built like a world, and so you can see this is parallel to that is parallel to that. And everything that you do there is moving a universe.